Now, we ended the last episode with the dangling of a carrot, where I said we would further investigate the opening of the portal to Apollyon, which I assumed occurred in 2020. Now, this was an error on my part. 2020 was not the unleashing of Apollyon. However, the focus of the book of Revelation is about the releasing of Apollyon on the earth. I misunderstood what Jason was saying. Having now reviewed the material, I realized that. I'm only now slowly getting up to speed regarding much of the archaic material, though I'm still far from being an expert. One of the things I discovered is that Jason has no time for the idea that this world is a prison. He refers to it as dungeon programming, and this has everything to do with his idea of the nature of the simulation. And when you understand his take on the construct, that's his way of referring to the simulation, this makes sense. It doesn't mean I agree with it though. It just makes sense from his perspective, but more on that later. Now, I have to say that one of the things I find slightly discomforting about Jason's manner is his no-holds-barred attitude to other ideas, or research that doesn't align with his paradigm. It's rather polarizing. I just wish he would be a little more accommodating or patient. Now, according to the archaic material, the period we are living through right now is designed to awaken us to what is coming. It's intended to grab our attention. It is the period of the breaking of the 7 seals in the book of Revelation. Now, it's important to note this phase is not the apocalypse, but the awakening prior to the apocalypse. The continued focus of our attention is going to be Apollyon. Now, we saw that Apollyon means destroyer, which seems appropriate for the times we are living in. Now, I want to once again make this clear. This is not my material. This is Jason Brashear's work. He gets all the credit for this, or the blame, depending on where you're coming from. All I'm doing is searching for the truth. And you, my friends, well, those of you who are still with me on this voyage, are my companions on this enigmatic journey. And I encourage each of you to take up or cast aside anything that does not resonate with you. This stuff can be rather mind-blowing if you haven't already noticed. Also, I want to make clear that this information is not coming from the traditional Christian perspective. So don't think this is religious Bible talk, not that I'm degrading that. This is more like seeing truth in all kinds of places. And I believe the archaic viewpoint is that the information contained in the book of Revelation has been hijacked by religion and is therefore skewed. And so it needed to be decoded differently, which he did. Jason did not use the traditional Christian method to interpret the symbolism found in the book of Revelation. So please don't be confused about that. But first, I think it might be appropriate to give an overview of what I think is Jason Brashear's interpretation of the matrix or simulation and how it works. Now, because of the sheer breadth of information available, this is going to be a condensed version. Not that I know everything Jason claims, though I do know it's much more than what is presented here. And I'm using this information as a context to where we find ourselves in the Matrix timeline today, and the whole purpose of the Matrix in general, from archaic perspective, of course. Now, the key to understanding this explanation is to view the simulation as a kind of a computer game, with us individuated units of consciousness as the players, inhabiting avatars. Everything starts in Genesis with the creation. This is the beginning of the simulation, or the game. Now, what's interesting here is Jason seems to latch on to what is known as the gap theory, a period or interval between Genesis 1 verse 1 and verse 2. Now, stated another way, it's believed the first chapter of Genesis, if taken literally, shows that the original creation is distinct from the 6 days of refashioning, reforming, or remaking the world in preparation for habitation, following a catastrophic event. Now, this is also known as the ruin reconstruction theory.
In the beginning God created the heaven and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep.
So verse 1, in the beginning God created the heaven and the earth, the original creation, the start of the game. Then a gap and a catastrophe. Then we have verse 2, and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. The consequence of the cataclysm. Now, the theory says that there is a span of time between verse 1 and verse 2, and it's suggested that a catastrophic event, such as the fall of Satan or a pre-Adamic civilization, led to a ruin of the original creation. Verse 2 and what follows is a reforming or reconstruction of creation to allow for a livable environment for the new humanity. That is, those who didn't make the exodus from the matrix previously. Now, Archaics asserts that the cataclysm was the old simulacrum, the end of which the awakened were able to exit the game following the apocalypse and move on to greater things. The apocalypse was the event that ruined the earth, forcing the recreation. Genesis chapter 1 verse 2 and following is the reset, where those who remained asleep during the end times are recycled back into the program and must go through everything again until they can get to Revelation and have another opportunity to exodus the simulacrum or game after many further life sims, of course. It's a reboot, if you like. Now, if we are not among those who overcome or wake up during the breaking of the seals, then back we go, and everything starts again at Genesis verse 2. Now, Jason uses Revelation 22 verses 1 to 12 to clarify this. He that is unjust, let him be unjust still, and he which is filthy, let him be filthy still, and he that is righteous, let him be righteous still, and he that is holy, let him be holy still. And behold, I come quickly, and my reward is with me, to give every man according as his work shall be. At this point, it's too late to change. He who is filthy, let him be filthy still. Back you go. He who is righteous, let him be righteous still. You made it to the next level, buddy. Now, according to Archaics, this is how we as immortals grow and learn. And it's not that different from other reincarnation-based philosophies such as Buddhism and Hinduism. And Jason maintains that hell is not a destination. Hell is an experience. And we've all been there, right? The destination is the exiting of the simulacrum. Now, as I said, this is just a brief overview to give us a context. There is much more detail to this that we need to look at if we want to get a good grasp of the overall hypothesis. But that's beyond the scope of this video. Now, one of Jason's books, which is a must-read, is The Lost Scriptures of Giza. In it, he talks about the role the Great Pyramid of Giza has in history and how it's intertwined with this simulation theory and the history of mankind. It's extraordinarily interesting. And I must read it again at some point because I missed a great deal of information there, I know. Sometimes I think I have attention deficit disorder. Now, having set the stage as to where we are chronologically speaking, that is, we are approaching the end of the simulacrum, let's continue the journey and discover what goodies the breaking of the second seal is going to bring us. Yay! I'm the Grumpy Grandpa.
Welcome to the Grumpy Grandpa channel, where grumbling is a way of life.
Now, I have said in previous videos that I believe we are in a war, a fight for our freedom. And as we look around this crazy, insane world of ours, and since we have access through technology to so much information and events happening during these crazy times, we can clearly see how quickly chaotic things have become. Whatever you might think about the state of the world right now, I believe it must be obvious that the changes we are witnessing are happening at an accelerated pace. This, I believe, could very well be due to the breaking of the second seal of Revelation, and which we have already noted are intended to capture our attention. And that is something that's not accomplished through a slow process. We only become seriously aware of important events when they happen suddenly or quickly, and that are pattern breaking. We've already briefly looked at the breaking of the first seal in 2020 with the attack of pharmakeia on humanity in the form of a poison as a response to the plague that hit. We are now standing at the threshold of a new year, where the second seal will be broken. Remember, this happens every 4 years, after the pattern of the Greek Olympiad calendar, which is a 4-year cycle. And I must tell you, the signs are already here. This is a time characterized by a zombie mind virus where much of humanity is trapped within a 5-sense reality, mentioned in the last episode, where the mind is influenced by sorcery or pharmakeia and the archonic influence. The second seal will act as a jolt to those already far along the road to recovery. That is, those in the process of regaining the memory of who we really are. The wise, in other words. The mind virus has turned herds of people into zombies. Native Americans call it Wetiko. And there are many ways to describe these zombified people, none of which are very complimentary. I call them moocows. Walter Lippmann, the bewildered herd, and archaics, the collective. And they're not difficult to identify. They are usually characterized by a groupthink mentality, a hive mind. Another name for this phenomenon is mass formation, a concept put forward by Dr. Matthias Desmet, who proposed the idea in 2021 during the pandemic. The theory suggests that under certain conditions, large groups of people may develop a kind of a collective hypnosis or psychological state that makes them more susceptible to accepting and following certain beliefs or narratives, even if those narratives are not grounded in objective reality. Now look around you and tell me this isn't happening today. The mask wearers are still out there, even though multiple scientific studies have pointed out the inaccuracies and inconsistencies of the so-called science, or pseudoscience, I think we can call it, and downright disinformation coming from government sources. It's well known the US is suffering from a serious mental health crisis, and not just the US, but the world over. This mind virus is controlling the masses. I'm sure you've witnessed those around you already adhering to particular views, many pushed by the establishment, unwavering in their convictions and unprepared to examine opposing viewpoints. It's a typical sight in the modern world, and it begs an important question. What motivates this unwavering dedication, despite evidence to the contrary? Now, Dietrich Bonhoeffer's theory of stupidity comes to mind as a way to try and solve this conundrum. In a world where evil and malice often dominate our discussions, there is a hidden enemy that poses an even greater threat to the pursuit of good. It is a force that blinds us and renders us defenseless and hinders our ability to reason, a byproduct of the mind virus. That enemy is none other than stupidity. And according to the shrewd words of Dietrich Bonhoeffer, stupidity is a more dangerous foe than malice itself. Now, born in 1906, Bonhoeffer grew up in a family environment that valued education, faith, and social justice. And as he witnessed the atrocities and injustices committed by the Nazis, he became determined to understand the underlying forces that allowed such evil to take hold. He noticed something peculiar, a shift in the collective unconsciousness of the German people. He observed that it wasn't simply wickedness or malice that drove individuals to commit heinous acts. Rather, it was a pervasive and dangerous form of ignorance that he labelled stupidity. And I think it is this condition which will facilitate the breaking of the second seal. Bonhoeffer's theory of stupidity went beyond a mere lack of intelligence. He recognized that it was a moral defect, a willful refusal to engage in critical thinking and self-reflection. Stupidity, as Bonhoeffer argued, rendered individuals defenseless against reason and blind to the consequence of their actions. This is exactly what I think the breaking of the second seal will look like. And know this, we are all susceptible to this virus of ignorance and folly. All too often I find myself shaking my head and pointing the metaphoric finger at myself for my own personal foolhardiness. I am not immune, and neither are you. Let him who is righteous or awakened be awakened still. If Jason is correct, our benefactor has already chosen the awakened to exit the matrix. Now, Jason admits the seals are not meant to be enigmatic to the seeker. They are not intended to be mysterious or hidden to he who overcomes. As I mentioned at the outset, this is not a traditional Bible study looking at eschatology or the study of last things. According to archaics, the book of Revelation, at its core, is simple in form. It is our programming we must distance ourselves from. It's the programming that has skewed the meaning of symbols. Now, the decoding of the first seal was accomplished using Greek mythology, not a traditional Christian method. It's important to note that, and it will be the same cipher that will be used for decoding the breaking of the second seal. Now, we are 4 years along from the breaking of the first seal. Now, the second seal is about to be broken. Besides this being the 4th year since the first seal, what is the big event that is to take place here in the US this year? Yes, the election. And we all know that US elections affect the whole world. US policy, or US foreign policy, I should say, affects everyone. Archaics has an interesting chart where Jason outlines the breaking of the seals. Now notice the 2 columns of dates. At the top is 2020, the first horseman. The left column goes back in time, while the right goes forward. He is talking about the isometric connection to 2016. Look at the second seal and look across to 2016. 4 years before 2020, we had the 2016 elections where a huge pattern break took place. Trump was elected as president and shocked the US and probably the whole world. The swamp creature Clinton thought she was going to walk the election. She was wrong. She thought it was a given to be handed to her on a plate. Now, this is how arrogant the deep state elites can be. Even the controllers of the planet are overtaken by the events of the breaking of the seals. They have no control over that. Now, the second horseman is announced by the bull. The color is red. Now, this is where peace is taken from the earth.
And there went out another horse that was red, and power was given to him that sat thereon, to take peace from the earth, and that they should kill one another. And there was given to him a great sword.
We are told, come and see. This is our invitation by the Oversoul, or divine being, God, source, whatever we want to call it. We are invited to investigate these matters for our benefit. Don't forget what the breaking of these seals is doing. It's the process of opening a book, a special book that contains great things. Jason rightly says there is a mistranslation here in Revelation 6 verse 4. The Greek word translated red is puros or pyros, a yellowy orange, the color of fire. This is where we get our word pyrotechnics from. Now, this is a very strong clue to what this horseman is about. We have been conditioned to believe this is the red horseman of war. It is not. This is something more menacing. We are told the rider is given a great sword. Another mistranslation. The Greek word is machaira, a large knife used for killing animals. Now, what follows is another one of those gotcha moments. Jason Brashears is linking this taking peace from the earth with a conflict with Islam. Now, his reasoning goes like this. The Islamic culture has incorporated within its language many sayings that has the word peace. In its greetings, for example, may his peace be upon you. And he says that if you read this passage in the Greek, and if you know anything about Islamic history, you would immediately think of the cult of the assassins. Now, this is describing an event that erupts worldwide in multiple occasions. The knife being the symbol of small weapons is not battle in the conventional sense. This is more sinister than that. This involves fifth column stuff. Now, a fifth column is a group of people who clandestinely undermine a larger group, typically from within, to aid an external enemy. Now, according to Jason, this is jihadic activity taking place throughout Western countries, all occurring at the same time, as if on cue. Now, these forces are already embedded within the different nations, waiting. Even now we are seeing rumblings of discontent, wars take place routinely, kind of. They spring up at different times and places, triggered by different events, and is kind of an everyday phenomenon these days. But this is going to be different. This is going to be pattern breaking, a sign for us to wake up. If Jason is correct, what we will see is a massive Muslim-Christian conflict. Are we not seeing the signs of this right now? And what about the mass migrations we are witnessing in Europe and the US? Many of military fighting age. Just look, see what George Soros has been funding all these years. The Western nations, the US, UK, France, Germany, the Scandinavian countries, are all compromised. Maybe you've seen the rioting in France by the jihadists.
في 2050 يعني سيكون مثلا عدد المسلمين في فرنسا أكثر من الفرنسي. الذي نعول عليه بأنه لابد أن يكون هناك دولة للمسلمين. هذه الدولة تحمل الإسلام هداية ونور بالجهاد في سبيل الله عز وجل، تحمل هذه الرسالة وهذه الرحمة. فتحوا بولندا النمسا وأصبحت على أسوار فيينا دولة الإسلام عاصمة النمسا، ورفع فيها الأذان. فإذن القضية بأنه سينشر سلطان الإسلام.
They support a radical form of Islam and reject democracy and freedom. Salafists. It's one of the fastest growing branches of Islam in Germany. That's what the Federal Domestic Intelligence Service says. In 2011, German authorities knew of about 3,800 Salafists in the country. 3 years later, that number was 7,000. And by 2017, it was 10,800. That's almost a trebling in 7 years. And this is the Salafist stronghold in Germany, the western state of North Rhine-Westphalia. It's thought there are about 3,000 Salafist supporters here. The regional intelligence agency classifies 800 of them as prone to violence. Authorities watch female Salafists particularly carefully. As wives and mothers, they're important in holding the community together.
Migration is at record levels. You will not see it stop. I was told 7 years ago by someone with knowledge of the matter that the goal, the plan, was going to be to bring in 100 million new migrants to fundamentally change America. And at that point, 7 years ago, I said 100 million, that's not, that won't be, we won't put up with that, that won't happen. We're now a third of the way there, at least a third of the way there. So if you look at these wonderful new migrants, you can see that most of them are fighting age men. The goal is to bring in 100 million of them. Nothing is going to stop that. They talk about immigration reform. They talk about, let's have some talk. Let's go to the border and take a look. Let's get something through Congress. Nothing is going to change it. Nothing is going to stop it. They're bringing in 100 million, and it's going to fundamentally change America to bring down the United States to go to a new form of governance for the human race. Whew, that's a mouthful.
This has certainly grabbed my attention. All of this is by design. I guess we'll see for ourselves this year if all this is true or not. As I've said, all the signs seem to be there. Added to this, Farsight has remote viewed the election of 2024, and it's not going to be pretty. Whoever gets in, there is going to be so much discontent that once again there will be mass protesting. Now, on a lighter note, Jason talks about the white robe and a new name that will be given to those who overcome. This is the new avatar, a new identity, a badge of honor because you made it through the simulation. Again, I'm simplifying this for brevity's sake. Many previous sleepers are beginning to wake up, and not even the criminal mainstream media is able to prevent it. The breaking of the seals is doing its job. But many are still in slumberland, the mental state, not the furniture stores. Nothing, it seems, can wake these people up. They are destined to be cycled back into the simulacrum for another go-round, the merry-go-round. Carousel for my American viewers. Until the next time.
If you enjoyed this video, don't be a pussy and subscribe to the Grumpy Old Buggers channel, so I can get some peace and quiet.